Good evening, everybody. Just a minute. I forgot to turn on my lighting. What will I have in here? Anyway, this is Ray Gibson, and I did a live month ago during a holiday weekend, and it went pretty well, but there were some things that were said out of that show that has brought up this show, which is called "Do All Trans Lives Really Matter?" I'm not going to be able to see the comments very well, and I'm also having to be my own production team because the guy that was with me before was unable to make it. So I'll have to figure out what's going on over there in a little bit. Listen, when I made this live known to multiple groups all over this platform, one of the first things that came out of people's mouths were, "All lives matter." Every time anybody brings up that Black Lives Matter, and the response to that is all lives matter. I don't think very many people have done their research and their homework over how all lives matter got created, but it's in Wikipedia, and it is a slogan that has come to be associated with criticism of the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, this live is not about the Black Lives Matter movement, but where it's coming from is that in the transgender world, Black trans men are put into a category that only, I'd say, I'm not even sure if Hispanics fall in this category, but in a category where our lives do not matter as much as theirs. Not on an economic scale, not on the political scale, and they do not really want to hear our stories as to how different it is being a Black trans man in the United States, let alone around the world. It is different. We stepped from a world of being basically a non-threat in this society to being Black men. And so there are implicit connotations of that, in that we are seen as a threat. And not only are we seen as a threat because we're Black men, but we're seen as a threat just because we're Black. So non-Blacks do not see this side of transition. They just don't see it. They're complicit about it. They're apathetic about it. They don't want to hear about it. They want to throw up that all lives matter or white lives matter or whatever. If our lives mattered, we would not be under the bus of not only the transgender community, but the cisgender community as well. And for those that may be watching this live, I'm not paying attention to the comments right now, and probably won't be throughout this live, because I will be talking to 3 other gentlemen, and we're just going to toss it back and forth about this. And then people will be making their comments, throughout and probably after the fact. But I will get back to and respond to them after this live is finished. But again, there is so much division going on in the United States, and we are being cut out of the conversation. I experienced that personally in my life. I experienced that in groups on this platform. I experienced this on my timeline on this platform. I experienced that we are to be seen and not heard. We are not to buck the system. We are not to talk about our experiences and how very, very, very different we are supported. The lack of support in the transgender community where the racial divide is involved. Because it's huge. The division is absolutely, absolutely humongous. The support that we receive, no matter what kind of platform where we exist on, is just astounding. So out of that conversation, I think it was Jaden. I'm sorry, Jaden. Me and my name issues. He mentioned that not only aren't we supported in the media, in the mass media, and not mass media, but we don't get asked to the table of non-black transgender men in the United States. We can hang around, we can watch what they're doing, we can watch the amount of money being thrown around for them, we can watch the amount of support going on around them. We listen and watch people whine about these little things that when we start talking about the huge things we are facing as black transgender men, from the fact that people don't think we are men because we don't have the genitals of men, just a complete lack of understanding in the entire world about who transgender people are. But so we are creating our own table since we are not being asked to the table, and this applies to your job. This applies to your career. You're not privy to the conversations of your superiors, your bosses, people like that. You're not privy to those conversations about you. People outing you, telling everybody that you're a transgender black man, and we'll be the first to lose our jobs behind stuff like that. But again, it's much easier to be stealth. You can be stealth, be a non-black and be stealth. But if we go stealth, we still have to deal with the issue of being black. So that's what makes the difference. That is why we need to create our own table, and exactly what we're doing, where we are openly talking about these kinds of issues, like it or not. We have to hear about yours, like it or not, because you dominate the population in social media. You dominate the population in the United States. You dominate the population in many, many other parts of the world. So this is our attempt to bring to the surface things that really, really, really need to be talked about, that we're unable to talk about. If we try to talk about it on social media platforms, we get blocked, we get banned, we get thrown out of groups, we get all this clapback coming from non-blacks who are fragile. Fragile meaning you don't want to hear it. You don't want to know the truth about what it's really like to be a black man, to be a black trans man in America. I'm not sure where that comes from or why that's so very, very difficult to embrace. But we have to embrace it, like it or not, 24 hours a day. We don't have one incident here and one incident there where we are being discriminated against. Either we're being discriminated against because we are transgender men, or we're being discriminated against because we're black, or we're being discriminated against and hunted and feared because we are black men. That is how the world perceives most of us, and it is a scary thing. So every time you walk out your door, that some cop, some Becky is going to call the police on us because we're in their space. Yes, we have stepped into those ranks, which I think is why a lot of people try to choose to be in the middle and to avoid that whole scene of being seen as a black man. See, if you're seen sometimes female, sometimes male, maybe you're not as much of a threat to this society. But me, I'm straight up male. I don't cross the line. I'm not non-binary. I'm not gender non-conforming. In fact, that's kind of a strange word because I'm not a conformist in other areas, but I am a conformist only in that I know I'm a man. So I guess I conform to men stuff. I don't know. But we get cut out of the circles. Not only with our transgender brothers and sisters, but the cisgender brothers and sisters and family members and bosses and military and being a veteran. I mean, I have seen in the last 3 years more discrimination against me personally than I seen the entire time that I thought I was a lesbian, which was over 50 years. I have seen more going on in the last 3 years than I have in 60 years I've been on the planet. That ought to tell you something. So while I'm bringing in these gentlemen to talk about, do all trans lives really matter, and to which degree that we do not. There is a hierarchy, there is a patriarchy going on in the United States where, depending where you are on that the pecking level, depending on who you are, we are up underneath everybody, including black transgender women. I've had 2 incidences in the last week with black transgender women where, I mean, they were trying to emasculate me, and I had to cut them off. They are being murdered, but our souls, our masculinity, our manhood is being murdered. Psychologically, mentally, socially, and whatnot. That is why I said in a live that I dedicated to a young man yesterday, or was it yesterday, that black transgender men are under the bus under all marginalized people because of sexism. Because people don't want to take us seriously as that which we say we are without the genitals of biological men. So, I'm going to do this according to time zones of which these other men are going to come in here and talk about this. And so I'm going to call out, you know who you... Oh, okay, let me find you Ndambi. I won't be able to do invites because I haven't figured out how to even see this live with my buddy's phone. Nadami, I sent you a invite, man. You want to come accept that invite? They have changed the way it looks. How weird. It's got this little blinking thing on the top saying, ah, there we go. What's up, brother?
Hello.
How you doing today?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. A little frustrated.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes, sir. I can hear you. I'm just
Okay,
having
awesome.
trouble finding things with this other phone, and I'm like, it's not my phone, so I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, how are
Uh-uh.
you today?
I'm doing all right, thank you. I've been blissfully busy, but yeah, it's been good stuff. Yeah.
Yes, I heard that. I'll tell people how
Hmm.
busy I am later. So,
You stay busy. Yes, you do.
I'm starting a business, and oh my goodness, nonprofits are very, very tough to create.
Yeah, they are. But you are doing the good work. You know, as they what did our elders say? You're doing the Lord's work, son. So
Yes, sir, I am.
let's let's go with that, shall we?
Yes, I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
Awesome.
So, I don't know if you had a lot of time to think about this topic of do all trans lives really matter, or do just some really matter, or exactly what is going on here? What do you think?
Um, I think about this actually on a daily basis, honestly. And I have since I began living openly as trans. So, the answer to your question, do all trans lives matter? I think that's a pretty obvious no, that it doesn't.
Right?
Yeah. And I think that that's really kind of obvious. You know, we have what is known as the gatekeeper dilemma that exists within our community. And
Talk about
these are
that.
the, yeah, okay, so these are the trans, and since we're speaking about our fellow brothers, I'll speak to that directly. These are the trans men who kind of like to tell people or adhere to this unwritten set of rules about how trans men are supposed to be. And so if someone does not adhere to said unofficial rules, then they are deemed not trans enough or not trans at all, as it were. And so they like to think that they are keeping the trans community or at the very least the transgender male community from being seen as a joke or a trend or a fad. And while I understand that, the way that they go about the matter is just all kinds of wrong. They set off more oppression within an already marginalized community. And let's face it, they're hypocrites because if someone were to come out, say some cisgender man were to come to them and say a quarter of the things that they say to other trans men whom they don't see as worthy, well, you know, we'd hear about it all day long, but they have no problem saying it to someone else. So that's where the hypocritical part comes in. But they
Okay.
believe that they are protecting, you know, the FTM culture or visibility, as it will. And in my personal opinion, I believe that they're doing more harm than good, definitely.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much what gatekeepers. That's pretty much what gatekeepers do. They remind me, just very briefly, I know we're speaking about the brothers, but they remind me of TERFs. So, you know, for anybody who doesn't know what TERFs
Explain.
are trans exclusionary radical feminists. And these are the feminists who do not believe that trans women are women. They
Yes.
think something different. And they also see trans men as traitors to the cause and the movement. So, the funny part about TERFs is like the same thing with gatekeepers, which is, you know, they don't like oppression and they're supposed to be fighting against oppression and patriarchy and whatnot, when in reality, in their own way, they actually are projecting that same sort of patriarchy and oppression.
They're perpetuating it.
Um, yeah, they're absolutely perpetuating it while also being oppression pimps and,
Ah,
you know,
oh, I
sort
like
of
it.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's just be honest. Let's just call a spade. And people know personally how I feel about what I personally think about turfs. I have absolutely, there's no love lost between me and these types of people. And the same thing is with gatekeepers. I'm not down for any marginalized group that kind of eats on itself and turns on itself, and sort of spins out of control on its own axis. I'm not down for that on any level. So, I think it's obvious that all trans lives don't matter, especially when you have the very different types of trans men that are in existence. It's not a cookie cutter thing. It's not a
No,
monolith, and that's what gatekeepers don't seem to understand. You
no,
know, um, there's no one way to be a trans man. I mean, if that were the case, I would not exist. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So, um, yeah, that's the sort of thing that it's really bad. Like, one of the commenters said, "What are some of the things that gatekeepers say?" So some of the things that gatekeepers might say um, is that they may have a problem with people who aren't transitioning. Not that not that they can't, but they choose not to. So they may say that they don't know what the full transgender experience is like because these people, uh, many of these people do not pass for male. And so therefore they're saying that they have cis privilege because they can't pass. And so these are,
mm.
yeah, these are some of the things that, gatekeepers could possibly say. And that's just a small, amount. It gets far
Actually,
worse
it's
than
not very
that.
small, Tommy. It's not very small because I've seen it a lot. In fact, it happens so much on this platform that admins of groups had to stop telling people to stop putting out pictures on in the group asking if they pass.
Yeah.
This passing business is I don't know. It's just so very much internal. That is an internal thing to each and every one of us, whether we
Yeah.
want to uh, pass as men. I didn't do this to pass. I didn't start my transition to pass as anything. I started my transition because I knew I was a man. And that while I didn't know what was going to happen once I started the medical part of the transition, um, I did not do it to pass. And I don't care if anybody thinks I am what I am or not. It is a
Well,
personal thing.
yeah, and I mean, and yes, that is your personal journey, which of course is very valid. But of course, we also have to keep in mind that for a lot of trans men, that is very much part of it. And while I do understand that, I think it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's just safer, socially if you can. You know what I mean? If you can
Well,
go
for
throughout the
black
day
trans
without,
men,
well, when I say safer means as in safer as somebody's not going to be clocking you, wondering whether or not you are male or something else. Now, the thing about being black, well, yeah, we're just going to get it on all, we're going to always get it on all accounts as far as that's concerned. But in our own circle, or even just among other cis men, let's just say other cis black men, it would be quote unquote safer for a black trans man to be able to pass. Therefore, he doesn't really have to look over his shoulder for that reason. See what
right?
I'm saying? He's
Yes,
gonna have to look over his shoulder for a reason.
other
But
reasons.
if he doesn't have to look over his shoulder because someone can't tell whether he is cis or not, then that's just one less thing that he had for which he has to be
One less
concerned.
thing, but I've been clocked by people who seen me and knew me from before I transitioned. So it's not all the way safe even for us, because in the travel, the circles that I traveled, I got clocked in a restaurant and had two women saying, "Well, were you female or not? Or were you?" And I mean, they were way out of line, and they were causing everybody else to look around and wonder what the heck they were talking about. And I suddenly felt very unsafe in that
Mm-hmm.
environment, and that somebody could have overheard that conversation and decided they did not like what they heard and followed my
Mm-hmm.
ass out of the restaurant or followed me home and done harm to
Mm-hmm.
me. So
Yeah.
we get clocked.
Yeah.
Even when we pass as mail, we get clocked by
Well,
people who knew us from before, including our family. So,
well, as far and I can understand that because that is, as you said, the very key thing that you said about that is from people who knew you before. But
mhm.
say around a whole circle of folks who don't know you from a can of paint. You see
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Whom you don't know what they're capable of and you can't see coming.
right.
That is I think that's the real sort of concern, as it
Yes,
were, threat,
yes.
danger, whatever it is you want to call it. And that's what I mean. In those situations, if you don't have to worry about somebody clocking you because of,
No,
how you present or not, yeah, one less thing. That's still something else because you're black. But if somebody does not have to approach you or whether or not because they don't know you might be trans, you might not because you look a certain way, then yeah, one less thing for which that person has to be concerned.
yeah,
Now, I do find that to be completely valid. You know, it's valid. If you think about it in those terms, in those contexts, sure, that's fine. If that is a goal for you, if that's something that's very important to you for very valid reasons, such as safety, such as issues, such as, anything else, then yes, fine, no problem. However, the only problem I have with that is when these same people who can quote unquote pass, whatever that means to them, is when they then turn around and they think that that should be the number one goal of all trans men. And
yeah.
then when they find out that it's not, then all of a sudden then they want to talk smack and have a problem and this and that. And, they want to berate, they want to belittle, they want to disrespect, they want to insult, knowing full well that if the same thing was being said to them, yeah, they would have a big problem. They would be, what's the word, triggered, all
Oh,
of these things. They would have an emotional breakdown. You
well,
know
a
what I
lot
mean?
of
And
them do that have to go off transitioning off of testosterone because of medical reasons,
right,
um, blood clots, other things that testosterone can
right.
cause. When they have to go off, they have complete meltdowns about that.
And while I do understand that, from a mental and an emotional point of view, I do believe that that does not still give any trans man the right to invalidate another trans man's experience.
Correct.
There's something that I learned. Matter of fact, my godmother taught me this, and she taught me a lot before she passed away. And one of the things she always used to tell me was a person's hurt feelings only entitles them to be hurt. That their hurt feelings does not entitle them to hurt anyone else in the process. So whatever you're going through, whatever a person is going through because they can no longer go through the medical transition, understand. I understand that. That's got to be a lot, but you're not gonna fuck me up because you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's where we're crossing. That's where we're crossing the line. That's where that becomes okay, and that's where you come into that gatekeeper, type territory. And that's never a good thing. As far as I'm
Hmm.
concerned, on that sense, I'm a bit of an absolutist. There is never going to be a valid reason for someone to invalidate someone else's trans experience. I do not care what it is. If this person, I know you have a thing with, non-binary trans men, and that's very valid. However, what you don't do, which I appreciate, you don't invalidate their experience. You just
No.
say you don't understand it. And that's fine. That's
Well,
perfectly fine. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I say a lot of things about it that but they are valid. Human beings and their experience is valid. It's just not something, it's just something that kind of gets in the way right now because they are coming across as turfs to binary men. That's the only
Yeah,
problem.
and see, and that's not okay on their part, nor would it be okay for anybody from, say, I don't know, our camp to, invalidate them. It's, if we're going to respect the fact that everybody's trans journey is individual and that no one can tell anyone else how to have their trans experience, then that has got to come from everyone, even for people who, identify as non-binary or uh, agender. That's got to be the exact same thing. Because, see, at the end of the day, all of us can be invalidated by somebody, and it's
What's
not going to feel
agender?
good. Agender is someone who does not identify as, a gender at all. So they don't identify as either male or female. And there are several
Oh,
pronouns that have come across that have been created within the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years or so, for people who identify as agender.
so
And
that's
it,
gender non-conforming or non-binary.
well, I guess it could fall under the same category. The thing
Okay.
about a lot of folks with gender, but I have known a lot of people who do identify as gender nonconforming, who may or may not still be all right with a particular binary pronoun being used. For example, I am in a relationship with a person who identifies as gender nonconforming. And so I personally uh, use the pronouns they, them, and their, because to me that's what defines them best. However, there are also quite a few people who refer to them as she, her, and hers. Now, with someone who is agender, that may be a bit more strict
Mm.
as opposed to someone who is gender nonconforming. But then again, this is all individual, and I am only giving you examples and whatnot. But do gender nonconforming exist and they're valid? Yes. Do agender and asexual people, do they exist and are they valid? Yes. Obviously, trans people exist. We're having this conversation right now, and we exist, yes. But is there a hierarchy? Absolutely. There is
Yeah.
very, very, very much a hierarchy, and that hierarchy is usually given to people who want to exist specifically in the binary, okay, and who have fully transitioned, okay, who can quote unquote pass. They seem to be the ones who believe that they are at the top here, okay, and then you're going to go down to ones who, they haven't had any type of surgery yet, but however, they are undergoing HRT and whatnot. So there's that, and then so they're usually the ones up under that, and then you're going to have the ones who, they're not on any T yet. However, they have more masculine, sort of physical features uh, than, say, I don't know, me. So then, you have them kind of there. And then you're going to go down even lower. You see what I'm saying? And so
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to have the people who uh, they don't, they are not transitioning. I mean, they're not medically transitioning, and they, really kind of can't pass it all, and whatever that means. And so usually, they're right there at the lower point. But interestingly enough, those men are not at the bottom. What I've come to understand is the ones who are at the very bottom, and this is the very ironic part. The trans men who are at the very bottom are the ones who actually are more effeminate. Feminine trans men are at the bottom of the totem pole. And
Mm.
yes, they do exist. You know
Well,
what I
you
mean?
almost talk about this as though being transgender is a choice.
No, it's not a choice. However, how our journey, how we walk in our journey in our life, and how we go about said journey, that part we do have a hand in. But as far as
Yeah,
being trans itself, no, that's us.
yeah.
That's who we are. Now, how we choose or how we go
The
about that
steps we
journey and
take
sharing it with
or
everyone
don't
else,
take.
yes, that's the part where we have some say in it. And I say some because just like you said, there are men out there who decide to medically transition and then unfortunately, because of health risks, they have to stop. See, they chose the HRT, they did not choose the health risks. So therefore, now they have to reevaluate and then they have to readapt so that not only can they continue to socially transition, but stay alive,
Yeah,
basically. Because if they continued on the route which they wanted to go, even more harm could be could be done. So yeah, there are certain parts of it that are a choice, but then there are certain parts of it where, that's just us. You know what
yeah.
I mean? That's
Because
just
we do have
who
people
we are.
watching this live who don't
Mhm.
understand any of this terminology. And a
Mhm.
lot of what is going on in the heterosexual, cisgender, left and right parts of the United States is a complete lack of understanding, period, and
Mhm. Yeah.
acceptance, period, about
Mhm.
transgender people, let alone black people, which is really where my bend is in all of this. Isn't it so much
Yes.
about this hierarchy within the trans spectrum, but this hierarchy that puts all of us, regardless of whether we are HRT or we're not, or we had surgeries or we're not, we are still being thrown under the bus as black people.
Black
We
men.
are part of
Absolutely.
that struggle inside of our own struggle. So,
Well, and I think that also speaks, and you're right. That also does still speak to um, everything that has been discussed here tonight, because you see, you add in the ingredient that we're black, and shit just gets all that much more real.
real,
It
real.
gets all that much more tight, all that much more, explosive, and and so on and so forth. Because, you know, as black men, it's already we are, a lot of us are already feeling like, whoo, we got to be hard, we got to be tough. You know what I mean? Because we black, we living as a black man in America. There's a song out there that the literal title of it is called "I'm a Black Man in a White World." That's the actual name of the song, and it's really, I'll send it to you. It's really
Yeah,
really good. And so when you think about it from those, senses, then yeah, there's so many of us who feel like we have to have that hard as nails, tough exterior, which is, quote unquote, a stereotype for many black men and black women, as a matter of fact. You know what I mean? You
yes,
have the strong black woman thing that's going on, and also have the strong black man. So, when someone does not necessarily, when a black man doesn't necessarily fit into that quote unquote mold, they're already being looked at and questioned and tested, not
yeah.
just by people outside of that community, most
Inside,
of all from the people who are standing to their left and their right, which is 99% of the time going to be other black men.
yeah,
So, when
and
you have
family.
that, and family, and so when you have that in your own camp, plus what's going on outside of your camp, which is the exact same thing, except it's a different skin tone and a different ethnicity.
Yeah,
That is tough.
I
It's
think we're
tough.
in a mess
So
in this
yeah.
country because it seems like black people, it seems to me, and it just may just be me, that black people have a bigger problem with
Mhm.
transgender people than white people do. I mean, they want to lynch us from the tallest tree. They are the first ones to tell me I ain't no man. See, I'm not getting that from non-black people. So I'm like,
Mhm.
um, okay. And I see this all day long. I'm quiet about it because I'm hanging out in their groups and their circles here in the area, and they're talking shit up the yin yang without realizing I'm a transgender man. They're talking shit about us, wanting to kill us, wanting
Mhm.
to physically hurt us if they
Mhm.
knew. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I don't get that when I'm traveling in the white circles. So what? Why are
Mhm.
we more critical in our own communities while we've got all this criticism going on outside of the community?
So, just from my personal experience, I have experienced that type of behavior from non-black people of color.
Oh, have you?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
oh yeah. Well, let me clear up. The first of all, I'm multi-ethnic. I have family who also is Polynesian, by who is related to me by blood. So I have a lot of family from my father's side that lives in Samoa, and you can't get a more male, sort of dominance community than in Samoa and in many parts of Polynesia.
Okay.
It's very, sort of male centered and driven. Not to say that they don't respect their women. However, the men are seen as pretty much everything. They're seen as the kings, the hunters, the gatherers, the so on and so forth. Anyway, so yeah, this has happened to me a lot in those communities, even though they themselves have a rich transgender history before it was
Wow.
colonized by white people. Oh yeah, the correct term for transgender people in Samoa we are referred to as fa'afafine, and that is usually a
That.
word that's used with trans women, but also trans men. But they
Hmm.
talk more about trans women than they do trans men, but the trans men do exist. For the Hawaiians, it is the mahu. So I mean, it's believe me, it's a whole thing. There's a whole rich history of transgender people within many parts of Polynesian slash uh, uh, Polynesian slash South Pacific culture.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, again, I'll send you all that stuff. It's really,
Okay.
really interesting and amazing and beautiful. I promise you, you're going to be like, wow. So, but to answer the question of why, I think it goes back to what we were just speaking about. And what we were speaking about is the fact that, it goes back to how, as black men, we feel we must be in order to survive. So we feel like we have to be tough. We feel like we have to be strong. We feel like we have to present this, sort of very, almost sort of
Macho.
rugged demeanor.
Macho
Yeah, in a
man.
lot of in a lot of ways, and that can come in like the hoodie or the button down shirt. It's really not so much the look so much as it's the attitude, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
we have to we have to exude this type of very specific, direct, distinct masculinity that if you really think about it, no other ethnicity of man really does. Not like us, not like internationally, like black, the international black man.
Yeah.
But since we're in America, let's speak about specifically the American black man. So and ours is very unique in itself too. So when you think about it on those terms, yeah, we feel like we have to do that for means of survival, not only for us, but for the people who are around us, for whom we may or may not feel responsible. And so, again, when someone comes along and they don't necessarily fit that mold, or they may even challenge that mold. That can automatically be seen off the bat, not as inquisitive or
No,
intuitive or
a
any of those
threat.
other things. No, you're exactly right. The number one thing that's going to be seen as off the bat is a threat. Because as black men, many of us feel like we don't need any more threats.
No.
We already have so
We're,
many. So,
hey, we're walking around with the weight of the world on our shoulders most of the
well, we have
time.
targets on our back. We
Yes,
have, we have,
targets.
we have, yeah, we have targets on our back, and unfortunately, some of us were born with targets on our back, for which we cannot escape for the rest of uh, our lives. Hence
Yeah,
the reason why many of us believe that we need to at least make things as more streamlined and whatnot as possible, which also goes back into the whole thing about passing or not. I think that falls directly right into that category, which is why which is why I don't knock anybody for if that's important for them. I knock them when they come after people who don't fit that mold. And that's exactly
right.
what all of this is about. And
Yeah,
so therefore, if we're gonna say Black Lives Matter, right? Then all Black lives have to matter, or none of them do, because this 50-50 shit is just that
yeah.
shit. You know
It's
what I mean? And
bullshit.
that
Complete bullshit.
movement was birthed. That movement was birthed in intersectionality.
Yeah,
Okay, those was
yeah.
three women. Two of them are queer women. One of them I actually didn't realize I once was really close with back in the day. We lost touch a really long time ago after I moved, but then I see her face pop back up, and I'm like, huh, you developed Black Lives Matter. Why does that not surprise me? You've always been dynamic. But yeah, I mean, this movement was birthed in intersectionality. And the
Hmm.
way I feel about it is if your movement ain't intersectional, then your movement ain't shit, basically. So people who were trying to sort of, again, be gatekeepers for this Black Lives Matter movement,
Yeah,
yeah, that's not going to work. See,
no,
gatekeeping doesn't work anywhere. And it
because
definitely does not work.
they're in a smaller box by saying only
Right.
these Black Lives Matter
Hmm.
and just exclude all the other Black people's lives matter. And in the bigger spectrum, none of our lives matter if we don't
If
if we don't say all Black lives matter and include
Exactly.
everybody in that umbrella, then how can non-Blacks see us as our lives matter?
Exactly. You know what I mean? From the brothers who were wrongfully incarcerated, for the
Mm-hmm.
brothers who were, you know, wrongfully
Prison
terminated
pipeline.
from their job. Yeah, exactly. All of, to the college graduate, all of that matters. So you mean to tell me that just because a certain person who was, a victim of police brutality, or a certain person who was, a victim of some injustice somehow all of a sudden their life doesn't matter, and they brought it on themselves. They called for their own injustice
They
because
victimize the
they
victim.
were born, yeah, because they were not born like you, cisgender person. Like, really.
They go
So
after
here's
them. They go after who they marry. They go after who they had a baby by. They go after who their relatives are. They go after. It doesn't even matter that they were murdered anymore. It's all about,
Yeah,
oh, they were murdered, but they were transgender women, or they were married to a white woman, or they were. All of a sudden, it gets lost that we're
yeah.
getting murdered.
The whole thing, that whole life gets lost. And, again, that's some serious hypocrisy right there. And, if that is something that we don't want, let's face it, the white folks doing to us, then that is certainly not something that we can go around doing to ourselves. Excuse me.
It's called. It's called.
Yeah.
It's called anti-blackness. It's called
Yes.
uh, slave mentality. It's called
Hmm.
by Dr. Joyce DeVry. I'm going to say her last name wrong. Post-traumatic slave disorder,
Hmm.
or syndrome, that we have been colonized so that we're mimicking the same behavior that we hate.
Yes, I guess when you don't have a good example, then you have to follow what it is that you've been given. But how it's supposed to go is when you know better, you're supposed to do better. And we
If
give
you know
them,
better.
if you know better, but some people do because they have people who are actually willing to educate you on social media for free, and you just want to be willfully ignorant. So I mean, it really does depend. It depends so far on you know the person. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
their
As with all
mentality,
things,
basically.
yeah, absolutely. But again, it all comes down to intersectionality. So if I'm not seeing the same type of vigor and passion and drive and wits and enthusiasm for justice for my trans brothers and my trans sisters who share the same skin color as I do, then this shit's not complete. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's not. Either we are all going to have a seat at this table, or we need to all step away from the table and break that bitch and build a new table and
A new
then make
table.
sure everybody has and make sure everybody has a seat there. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I mean
Yeah.
that's just really where I'm coming from. That's my perspective. I'm sure there are others who have had different experiences, but for me, yes, I do a lot of work with trans youth, so I'm seeing this, pretty much every day in my space, especially as a black trans man who is also living in the South, which is its own little special flavor,
Ooh,
of things. So,
kind of regressive down here.
uh, yeah, I mean, I think that it's coming out of its regression, but like in so many places, it has work to do. It may just have a little bit more work to do than others. But I don't want to say, especially where I live at in Charlotte, I don't want to say it's completely regressive here. I think great strides have been made.
Yeah.
However, there's
Especially
still a
that
lot of work
politician
to be
that
put
got
in.
elected up there. Who was that?
Hmm.
Mayor or who was she? There was a black trans woman, I think, who got elected to something in North Carolina. Or am I mistaken?
And the name escapes me. I know exactly who you're talking about, but yes, absolutely, that's a very going to say that, yeah, progress is being made here is enough to be like, hey, yeah, we good down here. No, not at all. But I do want to acknowledge the work that has been done, in areas such as the South region. And one of the organizations that's really helping a lot to do that is a group called Song Southerners on New Ground. They're doing a lot, and they're actually
Everybody stand by because it looks like things are freezing up over here. I'm not sure if everybody can see that. I'm going to wait till it unfreezes and then I'm going to say,
Whoa, okay,
oh,
yes,
there you
there you
are.
are.
I don't know what's going on.
Yes, 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 there I am. I'm
Nadali,
so sorry.
I'm going to say one
Uh,
more thing to you and then ask you to introduce. Uh-oh, you just disappeared. I wanted him to introduce himself because he got into it rather quickly. What I want to say, he brought up something that his grandmother taught him and something that I've personally experienced in intimate relationships and relationships with my family, and that is this: hurt people hurt other people. There is so much hurt going on in communities nationwide, bar certain kinds of people, but the ones that are in control seem to be less hurt than everybody else, and they don't care that they're stomping the shit out of everybody and causing division everywhere. But when you're hurt, when you don't take care of that hurt inside, you will hurt other people with it. And so that his grandmother, what his grandmother taught him, reminded me of that. And upon that, I think we're still live. I'm going to be looking for a gentleman that was supposed to be on last time and see what he has to say about this. Oh, crap. I misspelled your name. Shah, are you in here, man? I'm sorry, Nadami, that you got cut off. Okay, okay, here we go. Let me see if I can get you in here, man. I sent you a invite, Mr. Hill. I don't know what happened to you, Mr. Zaire, but you disappeared off the camera. Can you see my invite, Shah?
What's up? Hey, everybody.
Hey, there you are. Good evening. Good night. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Let me turn this up. All right, it's good. All right. What's up, everybody?
Hey, introduce yourself, and then you can dive right into this.
What's up, everybody? I'm Shah. I'm down here in South Carolina, and I'm a trans man, and I go by pronouns as he, him, they, if you feel comfortable. And let's see. Yeah, and I am on HRT. Been about actually a year this month. So yeah.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah, my anniversary. Thanks.
So, do all trans lives matter to you, sir? Or what do you think about that whole thing?
You know, it's funny that, before I was a lesbian for about, 20 something years of my life. So it's funny when you cross over to a different, when you identify as something different, how much you learn and how much you know that you didn't notice before. And just like, it's kind of like everything in your past, you look at it differently now. And then it's like, man, wow, I didn't notice that was that. But, now that I am more in a male space, uh, it's things are a little bit more apparent. Like I didn't notice things like like before I got it before, so it was kind of weird for me. So it's more of a more noticeable transition than before, because when I was presenting myself as a lesbian, I didn't notice that I was still giving trans vibes to people. I didn't know how masculine I looked than how I really looked, and so basically,
so you was a stud, huh?
Oh yeah, basically I was an AG. Like I'm from New York City, so we categorize ourselves as AGs, like aggressive.
Oh boy. Oh, here
Oh,
you
there we
are.
go. Yeah, but yeah, I guess I was a bit masculine. So for me, it was like I would get certain things and get hated on, but I didn't understand why, for certain reasons. And now I was like, now that I crossed over, I'm like, oh, that's why. They thought I was trans. All right. And now they was just giving me extra hate. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Now I get.
My God, yes. Yes.
All
I'm
right. No,
getting extra hate too, man. I'm getting extra,
yeah,
extra hate.
I know. We all are, man. We all
Oh,
are. Sitting over there like, man, I was so naive because I just didn't know. But it wasn't like, it was just like whatever, because me, I'm still like, I'm going to do me no matter what somebody else is think, because they ain't living my life. So why am I going to be constantly worrying about it? Which, it's harder to say that way because you want to think that everybody lives matter, but when you're talking to family and you be thinking like, oh, well, they've been with you for a while, they know how you've always been. So, you transitioning, especially like with me, I've always been the same way. It's never been nothing new. I came out like lesbian when I was 16, told my mom. Mom, she already kind of knew. And then since then, it's just been me acting the same way. Only thing's changed is what you have to say now. That's it. So people more is, and besides HRT, but that wasn't that much, whatever. It wasn't that big of a deal for me at least. So, when you speak to other people about, well, yeah, I'm Hispanic, like I'm mixed. I'm multi black, Hispanic, and Indian. So with that being said, I get half and half sometimes. Sometimes I get black people come up to me and be, hey, what's up, amigo? Like they'll speak to me like I'm Hispanic. I'll say, oh, what's up? I'll say, oh, what's up, man? What's up? What's up? Hola, whatever. And like, then the black people, they know I'll be one of them, or they can tell I'm mixed. So normally I'm always down. It's no big deal for me. But when I'm now that I'm on HRT more, I realize that being down here in the South, especially here in South Carolina, there's a lot of spaces I know now that it's just more in my head that I can't be in. I can't be caught around too many females at one time in like really close quarter areas because it's just like different people see things, and it doesn't matter. So when you talk to people and you tell them, like, when you tell them about yourself, they automatically sometimes treat you differently
Yeah,
because, like, oh wait, you are in a in
yeah,
a in a black in a black man, especially in our spaces, in our community, in black male spaces. When they know that you are, they automatically don't treat you the same, so now you
they
have to deal
close
with
that.
that.
They close the man code, the
Yeah,
man
they
door.
yup, they close that openness where at first they talking to you like everything's fine, just what you wanted, nothing different. But when they find out things, then they start asking and probing, and then they start getting into perverted ways like how men think, and it's more of that toxic masculine ignorant thought
Yeah,
that's why we have to keep speaking and talking to people and being like, no, this is not the way it is, especially when you're around them and you're yourself, and it's just like, yo, like for me, I've always been myself, so when I get people who don't know me, or who make assumptions, I like to nip that in the bud because you don't know me, I don't know you. Now, would you like me to go off of assumptions from what I think? Like, I see a lot of people, and especially in corporate worlds, people might think that, like, oh, I see an asshole all the time, and they're just, they're out there fucking around doing whatever. People think nothing of them, or they think whatever of them, move on. But see, in my space, if I do that, I get more names put on. I get more assumptions, more bad negativity pushed on because they don't know me. It's like I'm a black unicorn. Like, what? What are you? I'm the rainbow unicorn. Like, who sees me? So for me, like, yeah. So it's like people, like, when you see you kind of representation of a community of your own, and like when there are so less of you, especially in my space where I'm in my workspaces like this, but so many of us, not even many. So it's funny to see, like, when people don't know, to find out when they do know, and to see how they react, because you want to feel valid, you want to feel normal, but I notice that when I'm in certain spaces, like, people make assumptions like, oh, like, you may be showing aggression or whatever, or you may, like, oh no, I don't want to mess with him because, like, he seems mean. And then I break down things and I explain to them, and then they change their whole demeanor, and they're just like, oh well, Shaw's nice. Like, I didn't know, like, you just have that face, and that demeanor where you just don't look like you want to be fucked with. But it's we just, I think it does a due diligence for us all to talk to people, and we go stealth so often as as black men, that we don't I guess take the time to put ourselves in that spotlight to to deal with the same things as trans women may deal with. Because why? Because their features may not be as stealthy as we can be.
yeah.
So for us, it's easiest for to be like, oh, whatever, forget everybody else, and we're just do our own lives and be our own people. But we're we're taking away that representation or that understanding from the community that people need, that people to understand in our own communities. Like, I have people who, they know me and they know how I am, but they still refuse to act a certain way because, either they don't believe I have the right things for them to, to fill that role, or, or just, I may not they might, especially, like, all right, great example, in black male spaces, once they figure out that you are trans, they don't know how to have the same conversation with you. Now they don't know what to talk to you about. Talking to you about the normal ignorant man thing seemed kind of ignorant for them. Now I feel like they feel embarrassed to talk to you about. It's like, oh wait, I don't know if I should say these things around them because I don't know, like as if like
You know what
someone
they're
like
really thinking. You know what they're really thinking, and I've gotten the 411 from some cis men that I came out to. Is all of a sudden they kick me back into being a woman.
you see that happens, and that's the problem about our community and cis black male communities that happens. So you trying to have um that image is so important. That's why we go stealth, because letting them see that vulnerability, especially in our community, having the vulnerability is a weakness, and that's something to prey on. And people, they don't know how to let you be, and just express different types of beings. Like, we are different, different than you. We've been around for ages, for years, but people don't know why. Because of suppression, and especially America, we are in categories: female, male, anything in between are questionable, or you just not too far left or too far right. It's just gonna be, you're gonna be on the outskirts. And it's good to like it's good to, I don't know, feel accepted, I guess. And that's why, like, it's important to feel like we all matter, because even in our spaces as trans men, like, feeling accepted kind of makes you feel comfortable. It makes you become you, right? It makes you
Mm,
show off that cockiness or that swag, or that whatever you have in yourself that makes you shine. But if you don't
mm,
feel that appreciation or comfortableness, or you feel part of something, how are you gonna ever do that? Then we're basically breeding a whole bunch of introverted people who
mm.
are just shy and don't know how to be out in the society. And then what
Yeah.
then we become, when we start coming out, people are like, oh my God, what is this fashion trend or this trend coming out? Like, they've been there. They're just, people are now feeling
I've been
comfortable
here
in
all
their
this
skin.
time. We've been here.
Yeah, like you were saying, like in your space, some of your spaces, people don't know, and then they talk shit, and you'd be like, like, I've heard it. I've been in my own spaces, and I hear certain men speak about things. Like, I've been in a barbershop. Barbershop talks are infamous. Like, you're in there, and then, in the black barbershops, you can get into some good talks when it's the right amount of people in there. And like, you hear things like, oh, like, man, those women, man, those trans women, they need to make themselves, noticeable. They need to have something so they can know or whatever, because sometimes you can't tell. And I'm sitting there like, well, that's the point. Like, you're not supposed to, like, be able to probe them and be
Exactly.
like, blah, blah, blah. Like, they not looking for that. And they'd be like, oh, like, one of my homeboys got caught up. And then it was like, man, yo, his homeboy was going to want to beat his ass. And I was just like, well, I was just thinking and sitting there just minding my business, because I was like, I know my barber knows I'm trans, so I'm wondering, like, I'm just in a different category to him.
Yeah.
So, like, it's funny.
Yeah.
So, like, you kind of have to always stay in a box where you have this really bad toxic masculinity thing, where as mothers, it starts from that point, from knowing that, you have to act this way, and, you have to be this way to protect yourself, to protect the family. And we're not in those times anymore. I feel like, where people have to learn that we are able to express ourselves. Like, we are putting people in boxes where their creativity, or their whatever, can't shine. Like me, I wasn't put in a box, thank God, with my mother, being, I was able to shine. I was able to do. My damn cat knocked down my stuff. Sorry. Uh,
Oh,
like, I was able to like, be me. I was able to build stuff. I was able to do all the fun, like, masculine activities, you would say, growing up. Like, I was able to go to RTC school, like all the fly airplanes, all that stuff. Like, my mom would seem as I was just trying to kill myself when I was young. She seen that because those wasn't things that
because you were
girls did.
risking. You risk.
Yes, yes, and I didn't
I was the
believe those
same way.
categories that
My mother had
I
a
would be
cow
that
because I
person.
rode motorcycles and I wanted to fly planes and I wanted to do
You
all these
see,
things. But I had to live both lives. I had to live sometimes where we accepted that I was very, very masculine, and other times, no, 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 you were biologically born this way, so you also got to act female. And I'm like, okay, well,
uh, yeah, see, I've always fought against that, and, like, I wish I knew more things when I was younger. That, like, I guess I wish I was more around the community in it than I was, to know that it was okay to be the way I wanted to be. Because I've always felt weird, like, even in the lesbian community, like, I didn't mind some of the hair, a lot of the hair I'd had. Like, certain ways, I didn't believe that you should be this way, but it was whatever. Like, you wanted to be that way, fine, but I'm not that way. I always didn't feel like I fit in that circle. And it's funny because no one would kind of let you know that, because if they was to let you know that you fit in that category, you would still be an outsider because you didn't totally fit in that category.
Yeah.
So, and
Like
that
the
was from
five
our own
the
community.
5-star lesbian box. I got thrown out of that one too. I was like, 5-star lesbian, what exactly is it? And then when I found out it was that, I said, well, I'm not. And then I got put in a different box.
Ah, you see, and our community does a big, our community does so great at putting everyone in boxes because of our own oppression we've had throughout the years. And just even throughout the communities, not even the communities that expressed it. Our generation now feel like we've been in slavery. We ain't gone through that. We ain't gone through those same impressions. We're gone through a different one. So we have a lot more freedom where I feel like we're putting off those same vibes, what is stopping our achievements now. Like a lot of people in our community can strive for so much. We can get more places than we are, but we have that thought process that these people are going to get us down anyways. And like our people can't. Our people are going to say, well, we don't feel comfortable with that. So what we do, we shy ourselves away from feeling our own being comfortable because we want to fit in those boxes.
Mm.
It's like a pull. It's like a give and a pull. It's like, man, I want to be myself, but I want them to accept me. But I don't know. And then after a while, when you start feeling more community outreach and you feel more people around you that support you, you're like, well, shit, man, I could do this. Why didn't I do this before? And you realize like people have been doing this for years and people have been living their true selves for years and don't listen to what the community is saying. Like that's because that's their business. Again, like was said earlier on this feed, hurt people, and they don't notice that they're hurting people, and that is the biggest thing. Where instead of some of us, like I do that, and I may mess myself up while I keep trying and trying, but letting people know like you are really doing something wrong. You're not doing the good things you think you're doing. You're doing this, and this is making you, me, or this person feel this way. Would you like that if that person made you feel this way? And give them examples and keep trying to tell them different examples because when hurt people are hurting, if you give them back that same hurt, the only thing they're gonna do is the only thing you're doing is fueling the fire to let them come back with more bullshit, more ignorance that don't make sense and bigotry
Yeah.
that you're just like, well, at this point, why am I even talking to you? Why? Why?
I just
Let you
cut them
be.
off. I don't even try
Exactly.
to deal with. I'm like,
You
you need
let
some
them be
therapy.
until somebody else can get to them, or let them be in their own circle, and then you surround yourself by those people who give you those good feels, or whatever it is that you need to feel, whatever. Because we all want to feel accepted, and we all want to feel like we're part of our own communities, especially in the Black community. Because in the Black community, especially here in the South, you are part of a big community. Like it's important. Like when you are Black down in the South, it's like it's either you with us or you not with us. So it's kind of like if you don't feel accepted and if people feel like you're the outsider, now you got to find your own community. And noticing down here in South Carolina, we got a lot of people in the community who don't really ride with the community, but because of accepted rules, I guess, or like community meaning like the church, like this is the Bible Belt down here now. Now I can
Hmm.
feel like some people might not come out in certain ways because they want to be seen as a certain way with family and they know family don't accept it. But like even some of the masculine, I want to say masculine lesbians down here, like some of them even don't know about the LGBT community, period. They don't even
Yeah,
know
I've
what
heard
an
of that.
LGBT community is. And I was just like, how are you married to a woman and you don't
You
know,
don't
or
know.
how are you a lesbian and you don't know this, and it's just so important for you to know this to feel like like it wouldn't be like a black on white. Like down here, everything's like black on white or, male and female. And it kind of makes bad situations for the younger youth growing up here. They don't have acceptance for a lot of things in this world. And that's where we have a lot of killings and ignorance things going on where people don't accept other people. Us in this community, we need to work harder to try to stick together, at least try. We don't have to like everybody. That's fine. But to be shaming somebody down or like, hey, if somebody come at you stupid, understand why they coming at you stupid. Why?
Right.
You realize they hurting. They hurting already. Why they hurting? Figure that shit out. Because we, I don't understand how you could be upset about something and somebody you could tell they going through something and the only thing they could be saying some negative shit and the only thing you're gonna go with is feed their fire instead of trying to be an uplifted spirit or just some type of light in their damn day. If
Mm.
not, stay away from them. We got so many people who troll online to mess with people
Mm.
for no reason, just because they looked at something that they didn't agree with. All right, you didn't have to scroll at that. You didn't have to look at that. You can scroll on the way just like the rest of us do, instead of leaving an
Well,
ignorant
I
comment or
think
something.
social media is breeding isolation, that people don't know how to interact anymore. They think interacting is what they're doing on social media, which is not the same as going out your door and meeting somebody in a different community or maybe even your community and talking to them and being friends with them. uh, Social media is redefining that whole doggone thing, and you got all these people in isolation, and they don't have anything to bounce anything off of.
Yeah, just I don't. I'm me here in South Carolina. Like I work for a very good corporate company, and I know a lot of people in the LGBT community could be like, "Oh, fuck corporate." I don't care because this corporate company is doing amazing jobs for me, and they're doing so much for like letting me. I work for Google basically, and
Well,
we
why would they
do
say fuck corporate?
not like people. I don't know, just maybe the younger generation who just maybe they don't understand certain things. Are they just the corporations that they know of are fucking the LGBT community? Like I don't know. Like they're younger, they can be just one thing they're thinking about instead of like a bigger picture or just understanding other aspects of things. I don't know. I let them think whatever they want. Be like, well, I love corporations, so I'm not gonna say nothing. Whatever. Let them have their free speech or whatever. But people not it could be anybody. When you don't let somebody express themselves, you don't let them be themselves, you miss out on a lot of diversity and a lot of great ideas and a lot of good perspectives and a lot of, just good times with people and that person. And I think our community and the black community need to understand that, hey, everybody, it's fine to be different, and it don't mean that the cops is gonna come after you and gonna take your family away just because everybody's different. Everybody thinks different, and like, because the church is important in the black community. When you don't believe in the church, that takes you away too. That puts you like, oh, that heathen over there. Now you're a heathen on top of things, and you got certain people who judge you. Like down here in the South, man, the older generation are so stuck in their ways where it's hard. You can't persuade them anywhere else. You just got to let the younger generation be around them and be themselves and let them keep seeing that, because that's their family. And they accept family and they understand that they are still family. So after a while they'll come around. So I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed that here in the South with our community, that if when you got family, they learn after a while that that's them, or they'll be like, oh, that's the funny family member or whatever, and they'll still
Mm-hmm.
somewhat be around them because they understand the importance of family. um
Right.
a lot of us, if we don't understand that, hey, it's okay to be different, it's okay that, oh, I know I'm gonna use some generics
Some of
too,
you
I mean
people
some generic
watching,
white name.
share for me. I'm sorry, Shaw. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of you people are
No,
watching. We'd appreciate it if you shared this live. Okay, sir, continue.
yeah, a lot of people not notice, but if everybody just say, hey, all right, that person's different over there, it's all right, but what makes them different from me and you? Let's go have a conversation. You find out, like, hey, you got a family, I got a family. What's different? Oh, they was, especially when you humanize something and you have moments with somebody and you realize, like, hey, I work with this person. Like, oh, like when they see us around and they be like, oh, like, especially you say you can go stealth. We go stealth in a lot of ways because we can, not because we don't feel like we need to advertise our life out there to have a whole bunch of people ask questions and poke at us and come up to us and stare at us. Like, we don't want that. So we go
No.
stealth. It just happens.
Yeah.
Some people, and some of us, like me, I feel like I have a duty sometimes to let myself be out there to let people see other expressions of masculinity and realize that it is okay to be the way I am. Like, I
Well,
got
there's
my
all
daughter
kinds
here.
of different kinds of men in the world. I mean, men
Yes, and I
are
think
all the same.
definitely. Yes, and I think that to get away from that whole, like, in our community, that strong black male, like, you have to be a certain way. Like, Men are nurses, like great nurses nowadays. Men are great teachers. Like we need men teachers out in the world in the education system to give that leadership to these young boys out here in the world, young men and women, just to see that. We need, people in all types of like community, females in STEM, just to show their minds and their great minds. Because when we have intersexuality, everything gets better because different minds bring in different things, and it's important. So to go back from my rambling of everything, um, trans trans Black lives is so important in the community that I feel like
But
we
do
don't want
they
to deal with.
all trans?
You
Do
know
all
what?
trans lives
Noticing
matter?
even you know, I think I want to say our Black trans lives don't because we aren't represented, and I want to go with because is important for me to say because we aren't we aren't out there. We aren't putting ourselves out there really. So we aren't represented and people don't think of us as like a category or anything to think about. Like, oh, like what is a trans man? Like you mean like people still think a trans man is a man to a female. A trans woman. People still think that they don't know the difference because they don't know that a lot of people don't know that we exist, which is baffling now, but it's fine. Hey, people are in their own bubble, especially cisgendered people are in their own bubble of non-understanding, so it's fine. We just keep getting our information out there and then spreading our word and being visible. Visible is really important, but in our own safe spaces. We have to feel comfortable. Like if we don't, then what we do, we go back to feeling in our going in our stealth mode and being comfortable and not dealing with that shit. Cause why? Our Black community can be savages. We don't want to deal with that savageness for no reason. We ain't bringing that shit towards us. We mind our business. We know how to do that. Other communities may not be the same.
Well,
So
when I brought this up, I forgot to say that do all trans lives matter within the trans community? I'm
no,
seeing that it does not.
no,
I am moving
negative.
around all trans communities, and I'm seeing that we're being stomped on by trans women, Black trans women, non-Black trans women,
White
white
trans
trans
women,
men,
especially.
white trans men, white trans women, Hispanic, Asian, and then you got on top of that the cisgender world. So yeah, I brought this up because it was like, you know what? No, our lives don't really matter. Um, they don't want to hear from us if we want to talk about these issues, or they'll think we're militants to even bring it up.
It's crazy that it's funny that when you first brought this topic up, I was thinking that what you mean like do all trans lives matter? And then like me being in the space I am or realizing like I am not in a big trans man space. I'm more in a not even my space, meaning that the contact that I do have with the trans community on an often basis is with trans women on a corporate level, and we are dealing with events and whatnot. And in that
No,
space, I feel I am one. I am one. I am one, and my importance to them is like I need to be there for them. Like they so happy that I am there because they don't know anybody else, and it's hard to find that in corporate. And I don't know if there's many people who want to be outed that much around that space of white women in corporate because they're things that they associate with they like the most we don't associate with. Those are not the same things we like. So
mm,
we kind of we don't associate with them because we're like, well, we don't have nothing in common with. So then it's always a weird space. Like even when I'm trying to get certain points across, I feel like, oh, my masculinity is too much for this space because it's all women here. And then like even then I feel like, oh shit, I can't even do but so much because it might come off aggressive or like or they might take it a certain way. And it's always I have to realize where I'm at, where I always explain like, all right, I give a disclaimer almost half the time when I'm about to say things just because like I kind of like I'm not gonna watch everything I say because somebody's gonna get their feelings hurt. So we're gonna have to let
no.
me express myself the way I want to, and that's what it's
Mm-hmm.
like. it's like I'll tell people like I have a conference coming up and I tell people like, hey, with the way I say things, I'm gonna say it the way I'm gonna say it, and how I decide to describe
Thank you.
myself or describe situations is the way I'm gonna describe it. If there's gonna be people on a comment who feel some type of way, let them come. I do not care, but I'm not gonna be butthurt because somebody got opinions because their feelings got hurt because I used a term or they couldn't take that. You know, they got dysphoria about a term that I used. I'm sorry, our community is a bit stronger than that. I'm not gonna deal with that. I'm just gonna have to suck it up and deal with my explanation and learn that if it has something to deal with you, then you can feel personal about it. If it doesn't, move the hell on.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't, and I think we just have to feel comfortable with asserting ourselves in those spaces. I think we went too long
I
with not being represented and not being out there that we don't know how to assert ourselves in those situations. I'm an outgoing person. No one's shutting me down. So when I come into work, hey everybody, hi everybody, and like I am known. Everybody knows me, and even if they don't know my identity or whatnot, they still know me. And it's just they're gonna know me as a good person or know me as whatever the person I am. I'm not
mm-hmm.
gonna try to go into a bubble or shell because people don't know how to treat me. They're gonna learn how to treat me because if they don't treat me correctly, I will fix it. I'm not gonna cry and go in my room and be like, oh my God, they misgendered me. I don't understand how they don't understand. Like, oh man, man, I wish my community understood. I wish they talked to me today, man. Like, damn, it was a rough day. I'm gonna write in my journal. Like, that's fine. You wanna go write in your journal, that's fine, but don't be butthurt about everything in the world. Like,
Yeah.
I,
Well, I
it's
tell you
funny.
what,
Like,
you know what might help us and help you? When I was living, I lived as a lesbian for over 40 years. I didn't know any different. I didn't know what I was. But I was
yeah,
extremely assertive and aggressive when it came to the corporate world. I did not care if people saw
but
me as aggressive. But since
in
I've
your space, that was
transitioned,
important.
well, since I transitioned, though, I have noticed a lot of people making me wrong for being aggressive and assertive, where they weren't doing that when I was living as a lesbian. They just saw, I
Black
don't know what
male
they
space.
saw, but as a male, oh, now it's wrong to be aggressive and assertive, makes me toxic masculine, and I'm like, oh no,
Like your
y'all
time is
crossing
up.
things over. Bullshit.
Yep,
I'm gonna
like
be
you.
this way.
Right, right. Like you've been the same way. You're right. Like, and
I've
I
been the
feel like
same
it's
way.
important though. Like in the black in your space that you was at that time, being aggressive was important to get your point across because ignorant men and not understanding like you mean something when you mean it, and
Well, yeah.
taking your word for what. So
And
that was important. But now
I climbed
being
from low end of the corporate world to the very high end of the corporate world because of my aggression and my assertion. So that's why I did all that. Not to, and I didn't care about your feelings. I was getting promoted. See you later. Bye. I'm moving
right.
on. And I ended up making a six-figure income without a degree because I'm aggressive and assertive. So no, so now
There you
why is
go.
it a problem now that I'm a trans man? All of a sudden it's a problem with everybody that I'm assertive and aggressive when I've been this way all my life.
Yeah, I didn't notice that my I have to learn that the spaces I am more and more, especially when I become like I'm not like that big of a person, but like masculine wise, like I do have some definition, and in certain forms, and then like how I speak in I want to say corporate or I don't want to keep throwing out the term white spaces, but just in non-cultured spaces. That is the great way to put it right there.
Yeah.
Non-cultured spaces, it's important because you kind of have like, I don't want to put it that way, but one chance, but you only have a couple chances to not come off a certain way to a group of people who don't know you. And and it takes time for those type of people, anybody. That's a lot of instances for people to get over that wrong understanding or misunderstanding that they might have from you. So,
Yeah.
us asserting ourselves and being in the spaces that we are and being out and visible is important. And I feel like me being in my space that this our voices aren't heard is I'm gonna make it be known. We have one other trans man in my spot in my space, and he's a white trans male. He's an introverted person. That's fine, whatever. But me in my space, I will not be out there, but I will be myself. And if anybody has questions or anybody needs to know anything, I will be, I'll be there for information. I will let you know. Just because, like, I want people to understand. I want people to be comfortable. I want people to, when they see a person that they're questioning or understanding, they can think like, all right, that person, without, being too disrespectful, to understand that person might be trans, especially if they see the, trans colors or non-binary or non-conforming, and be more open to talking to them and expressing non-ignorance. That's just going to put it that way, because that can come in many.
Non-ignorance. They
Yes, I'm
have to
just going to put
become.
that in.
They
That
have
can
to
come in
have
many
some
forms.
kind of knowledge to be not ignorant. I mean, that's where
Well,
ignorance comes from, is lack of knowledge.
all right, yeah. So that's why, them being open-minded to understanding things will let them take in the information, let them hear what they need to hear, and not hear something else.
Yeah.
Because when sometimes you're talking to people, they be like, wait, but like I told somebody about me, and he didn't understand it until like months later, and I had re-explained it to him. He was like, "Oh, that's what you meant." Like, so
I'm glad
it's
you did that. I'm
yeah,
glad you did
and
that.
I'm really big on, I don't care, like sometimes I will be uncomfortable, and sometimes you have to be that way to grow in different ways and to learn different ways about yourself, to learn like I didn't like that, or learn that I'm gonna do it this way now because I didn't like the way this person said it. This made me feel this way. And sometimes speaking to our community, I feel like, well, they don't know a lot because they can't tell. Like, to our community, I'm a cis male a lot of times, and I wear a LGBT banner on me most of the time. So, like, they might think I'm gay. I don't know what they think. Or I might support them. Half the time, I do think they think I'm gay because I don't get hit on by females. I get hit on by all men. Yeah. So
Mm.
I think everybody sees me as trans. Excuse me. Hi, everybody. That's Princess. Princess. Everybody.
Hi.
Yeah. She just took over my spot. But
Hi, Princess. Well,
yeah. So
man, I
it's
appreciate
important.
your contribution to this conversation.
Yes,
We
man.
missed
Yes.
you last month. I'm going to try to the best of my ability to uplift our brothers, because we don't get uplifted enough. Even if you're in the
Yes.
corporate
Yes.
world and you're not in the world I travel in, because I am retired, I don't work for anybody. And so I get to see things that a lot of other people aren't seeing because they're working 8 hours a day. But most of the work that I do is on the internet. So I get to see a lot of different things and a lot of different attitudes and opinions and
Mm.
biases and bigotry and discrimination. And I get to see all of that stuff in the circles I travel in. So,
Kind of
but we
imagine.
definitely need to be, everybody's perspective and what they're going through needs to be heard and seen. So that's what I'm out to do.
These talks are important, man. These conversations are important, even to let other trans men or women, even to see them, to see, to understand that these talks are being, had, and this is important, and people do see these as an important conversation, and our visibility it means a lot. So yeah, man, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming. And we're going to get one more guy on there before we wrap it up. You have a good
Yep,
rest of
yep.
your Sunday, Sha. Love hearing from
Yeah,
you.
you too, man.
All right.
Yeah, no problem, Ray.
Okay, one more, and I don't even know how to find you. Uh, uh, Jaden, hold on. Let me see if I can find you. God, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, okay, I'm just going to do a search for you. There you are. Okay, calling Jaden. Are you still around, sir? Jaden. Calling Jaden. I sent you an invite. Should I send you another one? Are you there, Jaden? Are you still around? Okay, I'm waiting for him. He's doing some invites. Jaden, I cannot see you. Are you still here? Who else is in here? They done changed this format a little bit, so it's hard for me to tell who is who and where is where and what the... Jaden. I gotta post this. Okay, there's the comments. Good grief. Okay. Mr. Jaden on the West Coast. Oh, what? Yeah, I didn't have enough time to. I wish that this live business. I did check out Zoom as a platform to do lives on, and it was a bit expensive for what for our purposes of just putting on lives to this platform. I will be sharing them to other platforms, and Jaden, I did send you an invite. If I see you, you'll show up in green down here. Somebody reach out to somebody reach ooh, I just saw a bunch of likes. Somebody reach out to Jaden Field. Come on, man. Are you gone? So you know, basically our my intent on this platform, and whatever platform we can find, is to make ourselves more seen and heard. Since we're not getting invited into other circles, then we'll have our own circle, and people get to watch from that perspective. Now, again, I posted this announcement for this live to many different groups on that platform, and they thought me noticing that they actually liked the post meant something. But evidently they didn't read the whole thing. That said, you know what, if you really want to hear from us, if you really want to hear a different way of living in this country, in this world, join the live. Don't just like. The like button is overrated on this platform. There's only, what, 5 choices of them like buttons anyway. I'm waiting for a shake of my fucking head like button, and there's so many other expressions that we can have to like on that platform. But, you know, liking the post, big deal. Watching these lives will show that you are not apathetic towards different kinds of transgender people. Will show that you're not just watching everything going on around the black transgender community like it's a TV show and you could care less. See, talk is cheap. The like button is cheap. Having a conversation where you show that you are accepting, show that you are supportive, showing that has gotten lost on people in this world. And I'm not sure when that happened. I'm sure social media had everything to do with people not, thumbs up. I'm going to take everybody's right away to do that thumbs up thing in my chat window, in my inbox. That is not talking. That is just throwing something out there to avoid saying something. So, by the same token, you can say anything. It's what you do that really matters. It's what you show that really matters. You can say one thing and do another, and guess what everybody's going to see? They're going to see what you do, not what you say. They're going to look at what you show, not what you don't show. You show apathy all day long. I could see that too. So I guess our last guy dipped out. He might have had something to do. I'm looking through the comments to see when the last time I saw him. But again, we'd love your support, but we're not going to wait for it. Well, we will support ourselves. And I'm just the guy to cause that to happen, whether anybody does it with us or not. The next live I do will probably have different characters. I've even reached out to a Native American to see if he would like to come. I also have an ally, a brother who was there for me at a very difficult time during my transition with a group that I used to run. So it's not all about, for people who are shying away from these things because they think it's all about me being black. Although I am pro-black, I also realize we have to live in society with everybody else. So, and there are some really, really fantastic good people trying to break through the racial divide and barriers going on in this country. So I will be looking and talking with them to come live with me in the future. But yeah, you're going to see mostly black trans men who are not being supported by non-black trans men. And then if once we get that together, then we can reach across the table to transgender women. And then together we can reach across to the entire LGBT community, if you want to call it that. And then together, so we're stacking, positive stuff. And together we can reach out to these straight folks that don't understand anything about us, very little about us. They're tolerating us, but they don't understand anything. So, but we need to do what they did in the 70s, the 60s and the 70s, as far as the LGBT getting their rights. We need to be doing the same thing to get our rights before we all lose them. If you haven't noticed, and you haven't been watching the news, and you haven't been watching politics, he's coming after, Citolini is coming after everybody, every marginalized person in the nation. Be you the immigrants right now, black people, the LGBTQ. He's not going to stop until he's got everybody under the bus. So it is time to wake up and it is time to unite. And I'm going to start small, but it's just like the tip of the iceberg and going to spread. That is my purpose on this earth, is to spread love, peace, understanding. And at the same time, I'm a tough motherfucker. If you piss me off or you come across the wrong way to me, I don't have time for you. I'm 60 years old. I'm a veteran, and I do not have time to play games and childish games with people. I will educate, but only so far. If I see a wall of ignorance that I cannot get past, have a seat. And if you don't have a seat, I will sit you down. So I'm going to end this live because I don't think Jaden came back. We'll have to catch you on the rebound, man. But everybody have a wonderful 4th of July. I'm not feeling particularly patriotic these days because of how we're being treated in this country. Even though I'm a veteran, I don't have to salute that flag anymore, nor do I have to pay tribute to that anthem that has just, there's slavery in the anthem, in the 4th verse. So, but everybody will do what they do. I'm just not going to celebrate that holiday. So I'm going to be working. Everybody have a very blessed night.